Good morning, everyone. On this episode of Coding with Kate, we are going to be talking about another section of root operations that are used in ICD-10-PCS procedural coding system. I suggest going to some of my previous videos, and I'll have a link in the description that will cover the introduction of root operations, why root operations are used in PCS, and the whole reasoning behind that, and then some information on more of the most commonly used root operations with examples. But today, we are going to be talking about a section of root operations that cut, separate, put in or back, or move body parts. Now, I will say some of these I still have some issues with figuring out if the objective is one of these root operations, so don't worry if, as you're learning, you still have some difficulty deciphering or deciding. It's okay. So the first operation is division, cutting into a body part without drawing fluids and or gases from the body part in order to separate or transect a body part. This one I do have issues and difficulties with deciding if it's division or not, so I still need to do some work and some research on the different procedures that use this root operation. Some examples would be episiotomy, or separation of the peritoneum. Go online, Google what that all means. Or a rhizotomy, which is a spinal nerve roots which are severed or separated before they enter the spinal cord. So again, look online to learn more about that, because I haven't had the opportunity to code a procedure with either of those, so I don't have too much information to explain those. So with this root operation, there are limited examples. It doesn't happen that often. And there is cutting to separate, which is the only action. So that's another way you can kind of decide if the only reason they are cutting a body part to separate it, you might be using division. Go online, talk to your professors, other coders to get more information or more examples and why. The next root operation is release, freeing a body part from an abnormal physical constraint by cutting or by the use of force. This one can be really tricky because you might think it's excision, but the objective, which is what PCS is focused on, finding the objective, is to release a body part. So if it's constrained by something and they're cutting the constraint off so the body part can expand to its normal size or function the way it should be or move back into its normal place, then you will be using release. Some examples are lysis of adhesions, which you're basically destroying the adhesions via lysis, so then the body part isn't constrained by them. So a really good example, especially with lysis of adhesions, is on the knee joint. So the adhesions on the knee joint are stopping the knee joint from having a full range of motion. So when they are destroying those adhesions, it is releasing the knee joint so then it can have a full range of motion. Another one would be release of scar contracture. So scar tissue that makes the body part or the skin around it too tight where it can't move the way it should or function the way it should, getting rid of or cutting those scars to allow the release of whatever body part they're constraining. Or a decompressive laminectomy. Don't know too much about that. Go online, Google that, see what that all means. And then this is another thing you really need to think about when you find that the objective is release. The way you should code it is you're coding to the body part that is being released. So with the knee joint example, if there are adhesions that, or if there's something with the tendons that are causing the constraint of the knee joint, the body part you're going to be coding for is the knee joint or whatever specific bone of the joint. That is the body part you're coding for. So remember that. Whenever release is involved, and that is the objective of the procedure, the body part you are coding for, so in your fourth character, the body part character, should be the body part that is constrained, not what is being cut to release that body part. And our next root operation is transplantation, putting in or on all or a portion of a living body part taken from another individual or animal to physically take the place and or function of all or a portion of a similar body part. This one, you will find if you think the objective is transplantation, there are very few and very specific body parts that allow for this root operation to be coded. So you can look through the index under transplantation, look for the body part you want, or if you want to go right to the table of the body system, you can look through the body part. If your body part is not on there, you can't use transplantation. You have to find a different root operation. So with this one, the ones that I know of, and I assume with each year as they update, more body parts that are becoming transplanted will be added to the list. But currently, as far as I know, we have the heart, pancreas, liver, kidney, esophagus, lung, thymus, face, and hands. Those are essentially the only body parts that you're able to use transplantation with. Look in the index or in the table first to see if the body part is what you need. Because if you can't find it, there's no way you can complete the code because your body part won't be available. And then another thing that you really need to pay attention to is cornea transplantations are coded as replacement, not transplantation. Remember that. But you will see in the table, cornea is not listed as a body part that you can use. And then also, bone marrow transplant is not a transplant. That one is in a completely different section of the code book. It's not defined in the medical surgical section, which is your first character of your code. It's in a completely different one. And as I work through creating the dissecting of the code book, you'll see the other sections. I'll probably make videos on solely just each of those other sections so you can understand which type of codes are used, and then we'll cover bone marrow transplants in that section. And just so you know, if you're curious and you don't want to wait until I do the video, it is in the administration section. And our next root operation is reattachment, putting back in or on all or a portion of a separated body part to its normal location or other suitable location. So this is when we're talking about if there was some injury of sorts where a body part was severed and they are attempting to reattach it. That's what we're talking about. And you can also find this with an avulse kidney. I need to research more about what an avulse kidney really means and what that looks like and why that falls under reattachment. But as far as if any of the extremities are severed from the body and then are put back together or back onto its normal placement, you're using reattachment. And keep in mind that it's completely severed. So if there's an injury where the finger is partially severed, there's still nerve endings or tissue or part of the bone is still attached, but it needs to be put back on, you cannot use reattachment. It has to be completely severed from the body to use this root operation. Then we have transfer, moving without taking out all or a portion of a body part to another location to take over the function of all or a portion of a body part. So this one is when we're talking about flap closures. So if there is some procedure that happens and they need to take part of the draining skin to stretch it over the opening or wound or whatever it is, that's a flap closure. Literally the skin is a flap and then they bring it over, suture it around, and then it covers whatever laceration of sorts that they are trying to close off. And keep in mind that if they're talking about a skin graft, that's when they're cutting the skin off and completely moving it. It's not even attached to the body anymore. They're completely moving it to a different portion of the body. That is not a transfer. A transfer has to be where part of the tissue or the body part is still connected to its original native location. Skin grafts are a completely different root operation. And then our last root operation is reposition, moving to its normal location or other suitable location, all or a portion of a body part. So this one, you're moving a body part from an abnormal location to a normal location. This one is most commonly used with reductions of displaced fractures. So a displaced fracture is when a section of the bone has completely broken off in 2 or more places and is not where it should be. That is a displaced fracture. And when they talk about reduction of a displaced fracture, you need to use reposition because they're going in and moving the bone back to where it should be and attaching it there so it stays there and heals there. And then if you come across reduction of a non-displaced fracture, that's a completely different root operation. Reposition is for fractures of displaced fractures. And then also rectopexy to treat a prolapsed rectum. If you hear rectopexy, you're looking at reposition. Go online, Google that to figure out what that all means. So those are all of the root operations that talk about cutting, separating, putting in or back, or moving body parts. Majority of these are only used for specific, very specific procedures, and sometimes you won't even come across any of them. But you at least need to know that they're there and why they differ from each other and which procedures are suitable for this root operation. So remember, go online, Google any procedures that you don't know what they mean so you can see them and learn what all happens, which will help you understand op reports when you do come across those types of procedures. So if you have any questions, post them in the comments. Check the links that I have in the descriptions to the previous root operation videos and one of the PCS videos I did on how to use the book. I will have more coming up, so keep an eye out for that. So I will see you all later. Bye!